You're listening to KSDS San Diego, KSDS HD1, KSDS HD2, and Jazz88.org. I'm Dave Drexler, and this is Inside Art. Support for Inside Art comes from the members of San Diego's Jazz 88.3. Tonight on Inside Art, we spotlight a pair of current La Jolla Playhouse productions. One, a muscular contemporary Pulitzer Prize-winning classic, and the other, a site-specific piece that transforms a Hillcrest Martini Lounge into a 1958 Greenwich Village nightclub. Later, artistic director Christopher Ashley previews his staging of David Mamet's Glengarry Glen Ross. But first, the drinks and music flow as a young singer and his band take the stage for their last performance before leaving New York City for good. Sam Bendrix at the Bon Soir features ABC's Brothers and Sisters star Luke McFarlane and his trio, showcasing a musical score of American song classics while also telling the story of a gay man looking for love in the closeted 1950s. Luke McFarlane originated the role of Sam Bendrix last year at Pittsburgh's City Theater, and he's bringing the Bon Soir nightclub lock, stock, and barrel to Martinis Above 4th in Hillcrest beginning tomorrow night through October 10th. Luke McFarlane, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Inside Art.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, Luke, who is Sam Bendrix in the first place?
Well, Sam Bendrix is a bunch of things. Mostly he is somebody who's trying to make his mark in the world. Like so many men, he came to New York City after the war and found himself living in Greenwich Village and all the incredible things that were happening at the time in Greenwich Village. Think for a moment about Leonard Bernstein and West Side Story and the beginnings of, the radical movement that's taking place there. The downtown version of Mad Men, the sort of the place where everyone goes to drink and talk political.
Even before that, this is like late 1950s where Mad Men is more like the early 60s.
Well, yes, I think the first season, let's not give too much press for Mad Men because I don't think they need any more, but I think their first season began in the late 50s. I could be wrong. But anyway, so Sam Bendrix is a man who finds himself in the city who wants to become a singer, and he starts working at this place called the Bon Soir. And the Bon Soir actually was a club that did exist on West 4th Street in the heart of Greenwich Village. And he starts there as a bartender, and over the years he finally gets the courage and the opportunity to take the stage, but he's never the headlining act. So this evening that we've created theatrically is the opportunity for him to take the stage as the center act.
Now, you talk about taking the stage. Originally in Pittsburgh, when this was first presented, it was on a proscenium-type stage, right?
It was actually a black box theater that they kind of transformed into the Bon Soir. So this site-specific thing is really new for us, where there actually will be a bar there, and the patrons will be able to drink real cocktails.
And what excites you about that change of atmosphere there? I think it would throw an entirely new dynamic into the piece.
Well, it really does, because, Keith Bunin, who is the author of this piece, is a playwright, and he's actually constructed a play. And a play requires a certain amount of listening. And, of course, there's songs. There's 25 songs, I think, in total. So we want to, despite the fact that people may be drinking martinis and Manhattans and Cosmos and whatever they wish, they're also required to listen, because there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of words spoken. So we need to grab the audience, not just with the songs, but also with the dialogue.
Now, there won't be the competition of blenders going off and waiters and waiters. There's actually, if you're going to order food and drink, this has to be done before the show.
That is correct. That is correct. I think there will be an opportunity at one point in the show to sort of get your second round delivered to you, but it needs to be ordered before the show.
Now, this is an actual club that did happen in New York. This was the Bon Soir.
Yes.
Was inspired by the actual club there. What was that like from your research?
Well, from my research, it was sort of down a dingy hallway. It was a mob-owned place, like so many of the places in Greenwich Village at the time. I guess it's most famous because it's the place that Barbra Streisand got her start. She used to sort of head out there, and she made her first impression there. This is an interesting time for the cabaret performer. It was really the heyday of the cabaret performer, and
just before the onset of really the mass popularity of rock and roll, I presume.
Yeah, exactly. And live television was happening at the same time too. So a lot of these cabaret performers would just kind of move towards the live television thing afterwards. But you think of people like Bobby Darin. They're really sort of establishing this form as like a classic American form.
And so this character, Sam Bendrix, has a dream.
Yes.
And he comes to, where's he originally from?
Well, he's from Nebraska.
That is a dream.
Yes, it's a long way from home. But it's one of the interesting things that this play sort of highlights is what the war did for so many of these men is they actually kind of had an opportunity for one of the first times to really, it was like an early form of the internet, really. They got to kind of meet other men from across the world and come to faraway cities and faraway places. So, you know, somebody from Nebraska could even hear about a place like New York City.
And the 1950s was a very closeted time for gay men. This is set in a time of 10 years prior to the Stonewall incident in Greenwich Village.
That's correct.
So how is that woven into the fabric of the story?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Like so many of these clubs, it's a deeply coded world where people are maybe aware of somebody's proclivities, but no one really talks about it because it's too dangerous. I mean, you have to keep in mind that most of these bars were being raided regularly by the cops, and you could be thrown in jail. And if you are visiting one of these bars and you say worked at an accounting firm uptown and you got busted, your name would be printed in the paper and you would be thrown out of the office the next day. So it was a dangerous thing for these men to visit these types of places, but to protect each other, everyone just kind of winked and nudged. No one said anything explicit. And Sam maybe has one drink too many and starts to kind of break down the coded world, which is an interesting concept because it's before Stonewall, it's before the radical movement really began. So he's a bit of a pioneer that way.
And so would you say today's audience, could learn a thing or two from that group of men that came through and had to live in a coded world?
I think so. I mean, that's the real hope, is that it can pay homage to these people that came before us. We take for granted now that we're debating whether or not men and women of the same sex should be allowed to get married, and these people were literally whether or not they should be allowed to keep their jobs and kicked out of their homes and their apartments. So yeah, there's definitely a little bit of a history lesson in there. But I should also say it's an opportunity to listen to a lot of really great old songs.
That brings up a really good point, which is the music itself. Yes. Now, have you been a singer for a long time?
I have been a singer of sorts. I was in a rock band in high school. But this is certainly my first foray into this kind of singing, cabaret singing. As a student at theater school, we do a little bit of this kind of thing, but this is a whole new challenge for me.
Did you do some musical theater also?
I never did musical theater, really, per se. I have a more of a sort of croony, soft kind of voice as I lean into the microphone. So, yeah, this is a new challenge for me.
And so you've been discovering these songs, these classic American songs, then, for this show, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. And Keith had an incredible ability to just pull out some really interesting new ones that I'd never heard, and some classics like Gershwin and Bernstein, and there's some Kurt Weill, there's some Hammerstein. So it's an amazing collection of songs.
And are there some that are unfamiliar to the audience? New material?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. None of them are composed. None of them are new. But I would be shocked if people have heard things like "The Land Where the Good Songs Go." There's a lot of very obscure ones in there. Yeah.
Now, this, of course, is airing on a jazz station, so I think it's of particular interest. We are kind of a station that celebrates the history of this sort of music.
Yes.
And tell us about the band and the whole interaction with that. And now, you said you were in a rock band, but this is something different.
Oh, absolutely. It's something different. We have a great band. We've kind of pieced together some local musicians here, Danny and Kevin, and we have great musical director, Charlie. But yeah, the feel is definitely different from rock. It's definitely not musical theater. We're putting as much swing into the beats as we possibly can. And yeah, it's a lot of fun.
And for you then, kind of inhabiting this character at the same time, that is quite a challenge to not only have to sing it on point, but then to create a role at the same time.
That's absolutely right, and I shouldn't even be talking right now because I need to save my voice.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, absolutely, it's a real challenge, but we actors like to raise to those types of challenges.
Let's look, if we can, back at a little bit of your acting history.
Sure.
And when did you get to, was it New York that you were first kind of discovered and cast in larger roles?
Yeah, I guess, I came right from high school. I went to Juilliard, and I did theater is where I sort of started. And in fact, that's how I met Keith, our playwright. Keith wrote a play that I guess I did about 6 years ago. It was me and Jill Clayburgh and an actor named Hamish Linklater in this three-hander. And that's when me and Keith kind of, really figured that we worked well together, and he created this role for me.
Oh, this is tailor-made for you.
It is tailor-made for me,
So yes. He must have seen something in you then that allowed him to, kind of visualize you in the role.
Well, I guess he knew I sang a little, and yeah, I guess he did.
So did he give you some of these songs to try out?
Well, he's kind of wonderful. He really likes to write alone. He sort of went off and composed these things, and he would occasionally check in with me about ideas, about things. But I was like, it was all sort of completely a surprise to me when I saw the script for the first time.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And then what was your first impression when you saw it?
Oh, I was terrified. I mean, it's just like this enormous challenge for any actor to sort of hold the attention of a room full of people for 85 minutes is a real challenge. An interesting thing about doing a one-person show too is there's this interesting thing happens is where when you're normally rehearsing a play, you have your scene partner there with you, and my scene partner doesn't show up until the first performance. So it's this wonderful, terrifying thing you find out who your scene partner is, and that's the audience, of course. So it'll be exciting to do it here in San Diego and see how the audience is different from the other audiences we've had in the past.
Now, you did it in Pittsburgh. Did you do it elsewhere?
Yeah, it was a workshop. So it began as a workshop in Los Angeles, and then we did another workshop at New York Stage and Film up in Poughkeepsie. So it's been a work in progress for about the last 3 years.
And how has it changed or evolved, would you say?
Oh, God, there's lots of little changes. Some songs have come, some songs have, been added, taken out, streamlined it a little bit more. I can't even recall. There's been so many sort of little snippets here and there.
Great. Let's then a little bit more about your career. Then what you're best known for is the ABC's Brothers and Sisters. That was on for 3 seasons or 4?
It was actually on for 5 seasons.
5 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're working as a working actor.
Yes, it does. Actually, it's a strange thing as an actor. You get used to this nomadic life, and then all of a sudden you sit down for 5 years and you forget what it feels like to be an actor.
The great thing about that show, and I'm sorry that it's been canceled, but the cast was a fantastic and with noted celebrities and lesser-known characters.
Yes.
How did that all come together as far as a working unit?
It worked really, really well. It was an interesting thing when the show was originally conceived. The creator of the show was a real friend of the theater, and he brought a lot of his theater friends together. So there was a lot of theater people involved in it, and people that just knew each other. So it always felt like a real family. It really did.
Yeah, Sally Field and Callista Flockhart, and
right.
There was some Rob Lowe.
Rob Lowe, that's right.
Yeah.
The amazing Rachel Griffith.
Yes.
Matthew Rhys, and then so many notable guest stars over the years.
What would you say you learned in your acting craft from some of these more experienced people?
Well, from Sally, I can say is that you are always working. The amazing thing about Sally is she paid just as much attention to the script from day one as she did to the last day. She always showed up prepared. She always went home, did her homework, made little notes, edited. She just always worked. She was a real worker. And I think so many people often think that, when you get to a certain level in your career, you kind of rest on your laurels. But Sally worked all the time, beginning to end, always prepared. And that was a real lesson.
And that's something you can really respect.
Absolutely, yeah.
And what are your plans after Sam Bendrix at the Bon Soir?
Well, it's been wonderful. I've done a lot of theater in the last year, but I think it's time to put a little more money in the bank account and get another television job. So we'll see what the world has in store for me. My guest has been Luke Macfarlane, who is starring as Sam Bendrix in Sam Bendrix at the Bon Soir, and it is playing at Martini's Above 4th in Hillcrest, part of the La Jolla Playhouse Without Walls series, running tomorrow, actually, September 23rd through October 10th. And we'll give you tickets and more information in just a moment. But thank you very much, Luke, and all the best to you in Sam Bendrix. Thank you very much.
My name is Sam Bendrix, and whatever brought you out into this blizzard tonight, well, I hope you find it. If you've come here to drink whiskey till the sharp corners of your life start blurring together, well, I hope the bartender obliges you. And if you're a young man hoping to do brave and daring things near attractive and available women, I wish you every bit of luck. And if you're looking to listen to a song or two, well, I sincerely hope I won't offend you. You'd be so nice to come home to. You'd be so nice by the fire, while a breeze on high sang a lullaby. You'd be all that I could desire.
Sam Bendrix at the Bon Soir is part of La Jolla Playhouse's Without Walls program, running September 23rd through October 10th at Martini's Above 4th in Hillcrest. Tickets and more information available at lajoyaplayhouse.org.